Okay, today we're going to look at counting significant figures, and really we're just going to worry about this part A, okay, of this document. So let's start with how to count sig figs. We're going to read from left, and we start counting sig figs when we encounter our first non-zero digit. So, for example, if we start here, we got 6, 1, and 3 has 3 sig figs because all non-zero numbers are significant. If I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, starting from the left, I count 6 sig figs. So if it's not a zero, it's significant. And that first rule applies to a majority of things that you see. The last 3 rules will apply to when we talk about zeros. So let's talk about number 2, and I call it the sandwich rule. It says zeros located between non-zero digits are significant. That means they count. So if the zeros are sandwiched in between 2 non-zero numbers. So for example, 5,004, these zeros are significant because they're sandwiched in between the 5 and the 4. So that means the 5 and the 4 are significant, and also the 2 zeros, for a total of 4 sig figs. Same thing here, 602. The 0 is sandwiched between the 6 and the 2. 6 and the 2 are significant because of rule 1, but the 0 here also is significant because it's sandwiched in, which means it has 3 sig figs. And not to count all these zeros, but there are 14 zeros here. The 6 and the 2 are significant, and then all the zeros in between it are, for a total of 16 significant figures. So that's the sandwich rule. Rule 3, trailing zeros. So these are zeros at the end of a number, are significant only if there is a decimal point in the number. Otherwise, they don't count. So zeros at the end count as significant if there's a decimal. So I got 5.640. The 5, 6, and 4 significant because of rule 1. The 0 is significant because it's a trailing 0 with a decimal. So here I have 120,000 with a decimal. Again, the 1 and 2 significant because they're not 0. But are the 4 zeros significant? They're trailing, and there's a decimal, therefore they count. So then we count all 6 as significant. But now we have the same number without a decimal. The 1 and the 2 are significant, but the zeros are not, because they are trailing zeros, and there's not a decimal point, so they don't count. So therefore this number has 2 sig figs. And then the last rule, zeros to the left of the first non-zero digit are insignificant. So zeros to the left never count. Okay, never ever count. So when I look at this one, 0.000456, the zeros don't count, but the 4, 5, and 6 do because of rule 1. Therefore, we have 3 sig figs. 0.052, again, the 5 and the 2 are significant, but the zeros are not because they're to the left. So that one only has 2 sig figs. And then we have this multitude of zeros, and 5 and 2. Also only has 2 significant figures because all the zeros are to the left. So, rehash the rules. All 0 numbers are significant. You'll see that most of the time. Only time we got to worry about it are zeros. If the zeros are sandwiched in between 2 non-zero numbers, then the 0 counts, and we count it as significant. If a 0 is trailing at the end of a number, it's only significant if there's a decimal. If there's not a decimal, they don't count. And then zeros to the left never count. So any zeros to the left, we never count. They're just placeholders. Okay? So now we're going to use those rules to work through a couple practice problems. So what I want you to do is right here, these practice problems here. All right? We're going to talk about these and see if you can get those right. So pause and write down A, B, C, D, E, and F, and write down what you think the answer is. Okay, so let's come back and let's talk about letter A. Letter A, you should type in your answer, and then your answer should be all zeros here are in front, so they consider our zeros to the left. So they are insignificant. They don't count. They're only placeholders. So therefore, this number, only the 2 5s are significant, so it has 2 significant figures. B, kind of a tricky one. B, 3.40 times 10 to the third. Now this doesn't count, okay? So scientific notation doesn't count. So let's look at here, 3.40. So we have a trailing zero. Our trailing zero rule is it's significant only if the number contains a decimal point. Since there's a decimal, the zero counts. So the 3, the 4 are significant, and also the 0. So 3 sig figs for letter B. Letter C, the 1, 6, 4, and 2 are all significant. What about the 0? Well, the 0 is between two non-zero digits. It's sandwiched in. So that means that the 0 is significant. So this 1, the 6, and the 4, and the 2 are 4, plus one more 5. 5 sig figs for C. Letter D, we have two situations. We have the 1 and the 2 for sure, but then we have the 0 that's sandwiched in, which counts. So that 0 is significant. Now this 0 at the end, it's a trailing 0. And there's a decimal, so that means the trailing 0 is significant. So all 4 of these are significant. So your answer is 4. For letter E, the 1, 6, 4, and 2 are significant. Now the 0, is it significant? Again, rule 2, it's sandwiched in. So that means it is significant. So all 5 of these numbers are significant. And then lastly, letter F. And letter F has this 0 and this 0. So the 1 and 2 count. This 0 right here is between the 1 and the 2. So per rule 2, it's significant. Now the trailing 0. Remember, trailing zeros are only significant if there's a decimal. In this number, there's no decimal. So that 0 does not count. So this number only has 3 sig figs. And there are other ways to check this, and we'll check them.